In episode 3, Layla also needs to go to Cairo. Even though she's Egyptian, she needs a fake passport. She goes to someone that's not only familiar with her, but also familiar with her father. It might be a family friend, it might be a family member, hell, it might even be her mother, but we don't know. You find out through the two conversing that Layla's father was an archaeologist. He, like Layla, was also after the scarab. But as Layla goes off to meet Mark in Cairo, Harrow's already arrived. And with the scarab directing him to Amit's tomb, it doesn't take too long for him to find it. He's so excited that he doesn't even care when he gets word that Mark Spector is in Cairo. That doesn't mean he's not going to take preemptive measures. Because when Mark gets a lead on where the dig site might be and he goes to meet that lead, the lead just got stabbed by a bunch of Harrow's men. The men start attacking Mark, but Mark can handle his own. When it comes time for Mark to actually kill these guys, that's when Steven shows up in a reflection, begging him not to kill them. All of a sudden, Mark blacks out. When he wakes up, he's in the back of a taxi cab, having no idea how he got there or where he's headed. Turns out he told the taxi driver to take him to the airport. He then suddenly sees the guys who attacked him walking out of a building, and he needs answers. They, in turn, need to get the hell away from him. They don't want any parts of him after what he did to him. He chases after them in the street, and eventually he catches up to one of them. He starts punching the guy, demanding to know where Harrow is, but then it's like Groundhog Day. He sees his reflection. It's Steven begging him to stop, and this distracts Mark long enough for him to get knocked out. Mark blacks out once again, and when he wakes up, he's on the top of a building with most of the guys dead. Mark has no idea how they got to that point, and there's only one of Harrow's men left alive. Khonshu starts pressuring Mark to get answers from him, taking him over to the ledge and threatening to throw him off. But Mark doesn't want to do it. He's a kid. Khonshu pressures him, though, saying that if he does that, the kid will talk. So Mark gives in, escorting the kid over to the ledge and demanding to know where the dig site is. But the kid doesn't talk, deciding that he'd rather kill himself than to give up the location. Because of this, they now need a plan B. Mark asks Khonshu, what about the other gods? I mean, are they really going to stand by and allow Harrow to unleash Amit? Can't you summon a meeting? But Khonshu is hesitant to ask for an audience with the gods. The last time he did that, he was imprisoned in stone. After thinking on it, though, Khonshu realizes this is the best option. So he sends the gods a message that even they can't ignore. He changes the sky. It works. They all show up, or at least their avatars do, and they convene inside the Great Pyramid. And by the way, this includes Harrow, who knows he's about to be called upon. The first avatar that Mark meets is Yatzil. She's the avatar of Hathor, goddess of music and love. Her and Khonshu used to be pretty close. Yatzil, though, gets called away by the other gods who want to speed this up and start the meeting. And unfortunately for Khonshu, the guy who seems to be leading the meeting doesn't really like him too much. He says that if Khonshu changes the sky again, he'll be imprisoned in stone. Mark starts explaining to the gods why he called the meeting. The threat of Harrow unleashing Amit is too great. But in turn, Harrow makes the case that Mark isn't doing so well. He basically paints Mark as crazy to the other avatars. Mark asks Harrow in front of everybody else, do you not want to raise Amit from the tomb? Harrow doesn't exactly say yes, although he also doesn't exactly say no, telling the gods that Khonshu is nothing more than jealous and paranoid. And this speech by Harrow works. The gods side with Harrow and don't really think he's a threat. After the meeting, Yatzil pulls Mark aside and explains there might be another way to find out where the tomb is. Amit was buried in secret. The location was hidden even from the gods. But there was one person who knew where Amit's tomb was, just in case the gods had to bring Amit back. The person who knew was a magi named Senfu. So if you find Senfu, you'll find the tomb. The issue is Senfu's sarcophagus was stolen, and no one has any idea where it is. So Mark is going to have to go to the black market and try to locate it. But if he's able to locate the sarcophagus, he should be able to locate the tomb. Mark decides to hit the streets, looking for the sarcophagus and asking around, but he's not getting anywhere. And that's when he runs into Layla. Layla points out to him, you're not getting anywhere with this because you're not Egyptian. Nobody trusts you. You don't know where to look. So Layla starts poking around, and it doesn't take long for Layla to find out who has a sarcophagus. But she points out to Mark, I'm not here to help you. I'm here to help me and everybody else who would die if Harrow succeeds. The two head over to inspect the sarcophagus in a boat, and as they're on the trip, she tells Mark, you could have told me about Steven. And he explains to her that until recently, Steven was under control. She asks what changed, and Mark just tells her it doesn't matter. They then arrive at a guy named Anton Mogart's compound. Mogart owns the sarcophagus. He's very rich and has a lot of friends with a lot of guns. Because of this, just to be on the safe side, Mark stashes a book bag full of supplies that could possibly help him out under one of the docks. They then head in. But as they're walking closer to the house, Mark notices that they were being followed. He's not quite sure if it's Harrow's men, but he's pretty confident. They decide to deal with it later and continue to head in. They start getting their stories down, and Mark asks her, "How do you know this guy?" Layla knows Mogart from their run-ins in Madripoor. The two seem to have a good relationship, and they're old friends. Because of this, he doesn't mind showing them the sarcophagus, but this is a big deal to him. He has a massive collection, and this is one of the prized possessions in it. He's also a little weary of their motives. So he lets them in, but he keeps a keen eye on them. They start looking around the sarcophagus, but there's no real clue on where the tomb is. It's at this moment where they know they need Steven. Mark doesn't want to do it, but even he knows he needs Steven. So Layla heads out to distract Mogart's men, as Mark continues to talk to Steven, trying to get some hint on what they can do to find out where the tomb is. Steven quickly notices that there are pieces of cloth in the sarcophagus where, if you fold them, it should lead to a map where the tomb would be located. Mark starts doing that, but he gets caught by Mogart's head of security. Just instinctually, Mark disarms him with his own gun, but he quickly has two other security guards with guns pointed at him. It causes Mark to stand down. Mogart is pissed, and Layla begs him for mercy, saying they were just trying to save lives. Mogart, though, is incensed, and it looks like they're about to kill Mark when they get interrupted by Harrow. He tells Mogart, "I could probably offer you something much more tangible than whatever they're offering you." And he pulls out the scarab. Layla once again begs Mogart not to listen, but he does. Harrow then turns his attention to both Layla and Mark, telling him, "You two have much more in common than you know. Like, Layla, you keep thinking that distance will prevent the wounds from your father's death from reopening. But something stands in your way. It's the fact that your husband doesn't tell you the truth. And Mark, you don't tell her the truth because you know that if you do, she'll see you exactly as you see yourself." He then turns his attention back to Mogart, asking him, "Do you want to see real power?" And all the while, Khonshu is standing behind them, begging Mark to summon the suit. As Mark is sitting there watching Harrow give a quasi-demonstration on the power from the staff, Mark does finally summon the suit. He starts taking all of Mogart's men out, while Layla is tasked with grabbing the pieces of cloth from the sarcophagus so they can find out where the tomb is. They're able to get out of there, but once they get down the road and it seems like they're safe, Layla asks, "What was Harrow talking about? That whole, you're not telling me the truth stuff." Of course, Mark knows exactly what Harrow was talking about, but he deflects, saying that Harrow was just trying to get in her head. What freaks out Layla is the fact that she never told anyone why she really moved, but somehow Harrow knew. You can tell, though, that there is definitely trust issues between the two. They then head to the middle of the desert and they start putting the pieces of cloth together that form constellations. Problem is, they're having trouble doing it. Mark doesn't want to admit it, but he knows he needs Steven's help. So he tags Steven in, and Steven is quickly able to put it together, figuring out exactly the constellations and the stars. But there's one giant issue. When that map was put together, the sky was slightly different than it is now. Stars move over time. So if they follow the map that they have, they're not going to get to the tomb. They need to know what the sky looked like back when the map was made. And since it was hundreds of years ago, there's nobody around that actually knows that. But then Khonshu speaks up, because he remembers. Even though he knows it's going to get him in trouble with the other gods, he, along with Steven, turn the clock back, changing the sky from today to what it used to be. This does result in Khonshu getting locked up in stone. Before he is locked up, he does yell, "Have Mark come find me." But this also gives both Steven and Layla, and Mark, I guess, a pinpoint location on where the tomb is. Khonshu's stone is taken to the Great Pyramid, where the Avatar, who seems to be in charge, calls Harrow to let him know, "You were right about Khonshu." Now, he's tethered to this place. Harrow doesn't know if Khonshu can hear him or not, but he decides to speak to him anyway, telling him that he's going to do what Khonshu couldn't. And when it's finished, I want you to remember one thing. Your torment forced me to do it. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. But once again, thank you for checking out this recap.